Hello and welcome to today's webinar and live debate. 2 proven strategies to drive your mobile initiative. Which one is for you? Before we get started, you're welcome to submit questions at any time using the chat feature. We'll address them during the QA session at the end of the session today. To test the chat feature before we get started, please write the country you are from in the chat window on the right-hand side of your screen now. If we don't manage to answer all your questions, someone will follow up with you shortly via email. We'll also make a recording of this webcast available to you within the next few days. Oh look, we have listeners from as far away as Guatemala, New Zealand, US, Egypt, UK. Cool. To start off our webinar, we'd like to start with a poll question. Which of the following do at least some employees at your company use? Tablets or smartphones for work purposes other than phone calls, text messaging, or email? Mobile calendar or contacts, IT-sanctioned secure file sharing apps, mobile apps for enterprise social networking or microblogging, or mobile apps for business-specific needs? Get your votes in now. While the results are coming in, I'd like to introduce you to David Lavender, VP Product Strategy at Harmony, and Fast Company contributor and information overload researcher, who will moderate today's debate. David, please give us the results of the poll.
Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. We're just going to wait a few seconds until all the voting is in before we display the results. Okay, we got voting is coming in. Okay, so we're going to give another 10 seconds to close the polls. If you haven't voted, vote now, and we'll display the results in just a second. Okay. Okay, so the poll shows that just about everybody is using tablets or smartphones for work purposes other than email, and three-quarters are using it for mobile calendaring and contacts, and then quite a bit less are using it for file sharing, social networking, microblogging, and about half are using it for some business-specific needs. So let's see how this compares to what some of the analysts are saying. So at the recent Gartner conference, the Portals Content and Collaboration Summit back in May, Gartner gave their state of where the mobile initiatives stand today. And they asked, they've done similar research that we asked in our polling question. And what they found is that today, BYOD is kind of yesterday's news. People already have their devices in organizations. And what most folks have reached is what they call the first tier of value, which is that email, calendaring, and contacts are what most people are using their mobile devices for at work, which is what our poll here found quite similarly. And that's good for personal productivity. But organizations today, because of these huge investments that are being made in mobile initiatives, are really looking to figure out how to get business value out of these initiatives. And that's what Gartner calls the second tier of value. And that's really where the market is today, is trying to figure out how to get that second tier of value. And the kind of things that the Gartner refers to are content creation. So not just being able to send emails or look at calendars or so on, but also to be able to create documents, work on stuff with people, generate these documents and email messages that can be shared back and forth for things like projects and contracts. Also, multimedia type content creation. But beyond creation, it's also about reviewing. So you have stuff that you're not just creating the contents and sending it to people, but you're also working and collaborating on an ongoing basis. So things like annotating documents that you get, highlighting, commenting, being able to really have live documents that you can work on is the second part of this. And also what Gartner calls high-value content consumption, which for a couple of examples would be expensive employees like managers. Time is money, so letting them work on the go, truly on the go, is a big thing. Or emergency personnel, where time means saving lives. You want to have high-value documents available to these people when they need them in the field, offline if necessary, certainly on a secure basis, so that they can actually get their work done and do something beneficial for the company. Now, before we go on to talk about how we do this, just a quick note is that, as you see in the second tier of value, a lot of the items listed here revolve around documents. So it just makes sense that SharePoint and Office 365 will play a central role in driving these mobile initiatives, because we know that about 80% of organizations already have SharePoint for managing and sharing documents. So whatever strategy you employ, being able to use these secure enterprise tools like SharePoint, or the ones that you already have in-house, are going to be a key part of making that initiative successful. Okay, so now we've discussed what you have to do. You have to find a way to give mobile workers secure access to important documents and let them work on those documents and share them and collaborate and be social around them as well. So the what is fairly straightforward and simple. The big question is the how. There's got to be a strategy if you want to succeed, because just making tools available doesn't work. We all know that. We know that changing people's behavior is always the biggest impediment to adopting any new technology. So the value to the user has to be perceived as super high, and the amount of work involved in learning the new technology has to be really low. So it's got to be simple to get people to switch. And there really are two main strategies that are available for driving lots of value, providing lots of value, on the other hand, making it very easy for users. One approach is to roll out mass appeal apps to the general work population. So, for example, make it easy for people to take notes at meetings on tablets and upload them and share them with colleagues in a click. So this approach places an emphasis on the ease of use, taking something that was complicated and making it easy for many different people. The other approach focuses on high-value business vertical-specific use cases. So the example of railway workers who need to access safety procedures during an emergency situation where they're offline is, is an example. The ability here to save lives and avert disaster by acting quickly has a huge benefit and enormous payout. So in this case, the emphasis is on providing high value to very specific workers in very specific work situations. So which approach is right? And for that, we're going to start our debate today and introduce our two presenters. So on the left, Ron Johnson, Vice President of Technical Services at Harmony, is going to vigorously argue that the mass appeal developing mass appeal apps and giving those to the general populace is absolutely the way to drive the mobile initiatives in companies. And on the right side, we've got Richard Poole, our Chief Technology Officer at Harmony, who's going to be arguing equally adamantly that the way to go is to develop high-value business-specific apps. And he's going to talk about two specific verticals, in this case, financial services and transportation. Now, I just spoke to these guys this morning, and each one of them is absolutely sure that their approach is correct. And it got pretty vocal this morning. They started throwing some chairs around. So, guys, let's play nicely, and remember we've got a large audience of professionals here, and really what they want to learn about is the best way to proceed on their own initiative. So let's leave personal squabbles aside, okay? All right, so with that, I'm going to present Richard and turn it over to him to present the business-specific vertical use cases.
Thank you, David. Let me just get my my screen showing. So for mobile apps to be successful in a corporate environment, they need to strike a balance between the usability that consumers expect in their personal life with the security and control that is required by IT to avoid data leakage. One such industry that really feels this pain is the financial industry, where city bankers are highly mobile and therefore rely heavily on smartphones and tablets to access email, but also to collaborate with their colleagues in real time. SharePoint is ideal for the collaboration part, but secure and usable access from mobile devices is a real challenge. Many financial companies have multiple mobility strategies for both corporate issued devices and bring your own devices, and as such have had to implement secure access via MDM solutions from security experts such as Good Technologies or Mobile Iron. For any mobile app to succeed in this industry, it must support multiple mobility strategies and secure environments, all at the same time as giving the business users and the usability they expect from the consumer apps, so they don't resort to using unsanctioned repositories to access and share confidential documentation. From both an IT and user point of view, having a simple app that does not rely on third-party apps to view and edit common document formats minimizes the administration and keeps users focused on the job that they need to do and avoids potentially costly formatting issues. So let's take a look at a single screen app in a secure environment. In this case, Mobile Iron, where IT are kept happy that I am who I say I am, and I can not only access I can not only access but productively work on my important documents. Here I'll navigate to a library that I have access to that contains lots of documentation, but I'm only interested in the documents that relate to a particular customer that I'm working with. So I can filter a library on key business information such as the account name and mark the filtered library as a favorite. So here you can see that I've got 3 documents in this particular library that relate to this, this customer, and I'm going to mark that as a favorite location so that I can easily get to it in the future, but also I can be notified when any of the documents that meet the criteria are either added or updated, so that I don't have to waste valuable time chasing people. I can now select a document that I'm interested in and get to all of the data, including reaching out to the account manager so that I can discuss the document with them. In this case, we can see that Annie is the client manager, and I can get to all of her contact information, her status, and her skills and interests. I can even get to her recent activity across both SharePoint and Yammer. I can then actually work on that document and use my tablet as though I was sat at my desk on my PC. In this case, still in that secure environment, I can open it into Office Web Apps. And have a full native Microsoft experience across all of my devices, even in this case on an iPad. So I can not only view but also edit that document exactly as I would expect to on my desktop. I can stay focused as well and go back directly to the document, and then I can send it to one of my colleagues that I'm working with on this particular account. You can see here that it's going to fire up the email client and do half of that process for me. So I'm going to just send a link to this document to my colleague who's working with me. Another industry that is highly mobile is the transport industry, where connectivity to the corporate infrastructure is not always 100% dependable, often due to poor signal in remote areas, for example. Workers may be called to the scene of an incident and have to access important safety procedure documentation or reach out to subject matter experts to resolve urgent issues. Minimizing the amount of paper that engineers have to carry with them not only saves time, but also resource costs, and means that potentially life-threatening emergencies can be dealt with in the most efficient way. For any mobile app to succeed in this industry, it must support offline access to important documents, as connectivity cannot be relied upon while on site. Having access to all required documentation on a single device means that engineers don't have to carry around piles of unnecessary and often out-of-date documentation. Being able to find the required documents and reach out to subject matter experts can save vital time and effectiveness in responding to unplanned incidents. In this mobile app, an engineer can travel straight to the site without having to think about whether he has the right documentation or the latest version of documents. While en route to the incident, I can browse and search for documents utilizing SharePoint views. So let's just go to a particular library. And here we can see that we have some views defined in this library which are actually grouped by the project. And that's the view that we're using. So in this case, the project that I'm interested in, because I'm working on, is the redevelopment of a major train station. In this case, the Reading Station redevelopment. I can also easily find and reach out to subject matter experts by searching for them in SharePoint directly from my tablet or smartphone. In this case, I want to find somebody in our organization that can help me with some government guidelines. I found Deborah, and from her profile, I can reach out to her, I can discuss the issue with her, and I can even connect to her as a colleague. Reaching out to Deborah in this instance reminds the user that at the start of the project, important documentation was published to all project personnel directly to their mobile devices, as connectivity during the redevelopment is not reliable. This could have been done in a number of different ways, either centrally via an MDM infrastructure or via SharePoint, or in this case, just for illustration, we can see that you can actually send an email out to all the users, and by simply clicking on the attachment that was sent to them, important documents are automatically pushed to the device, and they're kept up to date so that users can access them anytime, night or day, even if they have no connectivity to SharePoint, and rest assured that they're working with the latest version of the document. If we go and have a look at our locations here and our favorites, you'll see that the station framework documentation is now provisioned to my device, and not only can I access the document while I'm online, but also if I go offline, where I may have no internet connection, you can see that I can still access not only the document, but also the metadata that defines it. And I can open the document to review and view it directly on my device, so that I don't have to retrieve, so that I can retrieve vital information from that documentation without having to carry around piles of possibly costly or out-of-date documentation. So in conclusion, I've described just two industries that have specific use cases for mobile apps, but there are many more that we're coming across every day. Thank you for listening to me, and with that, I'd like to pass back to David.
Thanks a lot, Richard. Okay. Thanks a lot, Richard. Well, you know, you convinced me. I totally get it, what you're saying. Seems makes a lot of sense. In fact, it makes so much sense, I'm not even sure it makes sense to turn this over over to Ron and let him present, because I think Ron's going to have a pretty tough time turning the tide and convincing the audience that it makes sense to develop mass appeal apps. But I don't know, Ron, do you want to take a shot anyway? You think you got a shot here?
I think I got a shot here, David. So.
All right, so let me turn the controls over to you. And take it away.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining today. Let me just jump right in here. So get my screen shared so we can all see it. So Richard, David, thank you very much. Richard, that was very impressive. I agree with a lot of what you're saying about the need to get people access to the latest content, the latest information, and making sure they have the latest info. Your approach, though, is a little narrow in that we're only addressing a small part of our target audience in our industry, so, or in our corporation. So what I was going to show you and talk about a little bit more is taking more of a broader approach and look at one case we'll look at in mass appeal is projects and meetings. And we all attend meetings. We probably all attend way too many meetings, and I think we'd all tend to agree that a lot of times our meetings are not well organized and not very efficient. And one of the keys to that is making sure people have the latest information, up-to-date documents, real-time editing, ability to share content, and not only have access to your documents and all that, but also to the people that are going to be attending the meeting, the tasks related to it, action items coming out of the meeting, the calendar of upcoming events. So it's very important that we look at this, and I think this applies to any type of meetings or projects. We can be talking about senior execs on the board meetings. We can talk about sales managers and sales executives on the weekly sales meeting, one of my favorite events. Or it could be an IT project. Or in the case we're going to look at projects around marketing events, similar to the webinar we're doing today. It'll be more focused around trade shows, but there's a lot of commonality when you start looking at organizing events and things like that to look at. So a couple of the key commonalities between these is the fact that we're always trying to pre-assemble content. So what are the important documents, whether it's a budget, planning, the latest slide decks, latest forecast. We need to pull that information together and tag it so that it's very easy to find and search for. The other pieces around this is we need to keep everybody updated. And that means, again, to-do lists, calendars, announcements, important announcements. We need to give our business users ways to both self-service them, and then, as Richard showed in the Harmony product, ways to automate some of that process, be able to push out favorites to the site and offline content to our users. So we're going to look at that. And another key aspect of that is update streams, as we see in like a lot of LinkedIn and Facebook, a lot of our consumer tools that we look at today. We need to be able to surface the relevant business information to our users when they need it. Make it very easy for them to act upon that. So let's take a look at this. There we go. So from a project management standpoint, one of the key aspects, as I mentioned, is easy publishing of project content. And as you can see from the screenshots here, and these screenshots are taken from the Harmony application, and this is how we would assemble content on our SharePoint site. So around a marketing event, we would have a subsite that has all of our information, contact, calendars, messages, reference materials that we're finding that we want to share, and then down to the event documents and things that like meeting minutes or booth design, things like that we want to share. And not only do we want to be able to publish this content, but we want to make sure it's findable and searchable. That's where classification and properties on SharePoint can become very important, being able to tag content properly so that people can use the views. The other piece of this is it's not only about as I mentioned, about getting to the right documents, but keeping people updated. And again, this tagging and being able to classify information, it's into your task and calendars. We may as an organization have 10 events going on. I may only be responsible for 2 of those or 2 IT projects. So I want to be able to follow the content that I have available. Okay, so in this example, we're showing how you can get into a calendar. You can see all the calendar events, or you can set up views on SharePoint to narrow that content down to specific used around maybe it's the SharePoint conference that just happened, or as David referenced earlier, the Gartner PPC event. We also want to be able to get the context. I don't know if any of you have ever worked a trade show out there. There's two things that we can always rely on happening at trade shows. One is the internet will not work well, and the wireless in the exhibit halls will not work. All our demos will be a little bit sketchy. The other piece of this is the lead retrieval machine will either disappear or not be able to find it or stop working. So again, just being able to not only focus on documents, but also here's an example of being able to find contact, of key contact, of people that we need, not the folks in our company, but the folks we're working with external to be able to find that. And a SharePoint contact list is a great way to do that. And as you can see from the screenshots, being able to search that for something like leads or internet service, and then being able to find their information very readily and easily and reach out to them on our mobile device. And the nice part of this is making sure that we have everything is the latest and greatest version of documents, information. With the Harmony app and with inside of this, you can be able to take this content with you. And again, as I mentioned, one of the biggest challenges we always hit at trade shows is connectivity. And so if you're on a trade show floor, maybe you don't have cell service, maybe you do, you don't have Wi-Fi service, having that contact flagged as offline and being readily available is critical there. It really kind of wraps up kind of the first piece of this I want to show is around, it's around assembly of content, being able to organize our meetings, making them very efficient. So let's take this a bit to the next level here, and let's talk a bit about what we call as a paperless initiative. So this could be anywhere from getting people standard operating procedure documents, latest design documents, project documents. So again, around the same thing, but now we've had this content. It's centrally located, secure on our SharePoint sites. We have mobile access to it. And now what we want to do is be able to execute our meetings and execute on this. And one of the key things, as David mentioned earlier, is really being able to share meeting notes, being able to work on things in real time, and not working on your personal copies of these things, but sharing it with the team. This eliminates a lot of things and drives efficiency. So we're always working on the latest version. We have search and find ability, so our users can get in, our business users get in and find the content very easily. We reduce chaos because we're leveraging versioning in SharePoint and the tagging aspect of it. Let's take a look at this again. So here's an example of ways that we get into the event document folder or document library. This could have thousands of documents in it. But if we organize these properly and use tagging and things, we can then search for it. And as you can see from the screenshots here, you can see that the events are being viewed or the documents are being viewed with a group by view. So we're grouping it by our event. And then we're able to use type ahead and start searching for and narrowing the search down or filtering the content down so we're only finding events, the documents related to the events we're interested in. From that standpoint, now we can go into the fact that we can annotate these content. We can use the built-in annotator with inside of Harmony and PDF annotate and annotate this on the fly. This could be meeting notes that we're taking. But again, we can update this stuff. We can annotate it right in our meeting. And then right from there, we update it to SharePoint. We update the document so we have the latest one on our server and shared with all our colleagues. We can tag it properly. In this case, you can see I'm changing the tag of where the event location is to the Sands Hotel and Conference Center in Vegas. So it makes it, again, very easy. And as I mentioned earlier, then I can also flag this stuff for offline so I have it available. And the nice thing with this is to actually, close the loop on this. And once we have this stuff tagged, we can find it. We can also update streams to make it readily available to see, so we're surfacing that business content. You can also now pull in the Yammer feed and Yammer information. So I can now go to it and I can apply to or add to a conversation. In this case, maybe we just finished the meeting around the booth design at the conference, and we're proud of what the work the design team's done. Now we want to share that with the company. So we go into, we copy a link, and now we share that, post that out on our Yammer feed directly. And again, the nice thing is it's all from a single window or a single app inside our iPad. So hopefully, David, I did an okay job of defending my turf here.
Thanks, Ron. So, yeah, you indeed, you actually surprised me. I was wrong. I was convinced that Richard had this thing in the lock, but you did a great job of showing that also the approach of using the mass appeal mobile apps is great, is a great approach as well. Okay. Okay, so actually now I'm not quite sure. So both of you are very convincing, and I think the only fair way to do this is to let the audience decide. Is Richard right with his business-specific vertical apps approach, or is Ron with his mass appeal apps for the general public worker approach correct? Or are they both right? Maybe you need to roll out both kinds of apps. So to decide who's right, rather than just telling us your opinion, we want you to tell us what you're doing in your organization, what your internal strategy is. So let's go to our next poll.
Thanks, David. As you said, it's time now for that all-important vote. To wind up the debate, we'd like you, our live audience, to decide on who you think is correct by telling us what your current strategy is for deploying mobile apps and services. Is it starting with mass appeal mobile apps? Is it starting with apps for business-specific mobile services? Is it both, that is starting with both mass appeal and business-specific mobile services, or no current strategy in place? Get those all-important votes in now.
Okay, we'll just wait a few more seconds for some more folks to lock in their votes. Still see the votes are still pouring in. Okay. So let's. I'm going to close the polls in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so let's take a look at those results. So it looks like it's pretty much across the board evenly split, with about a quarter saying we need to start with the mass appeal apps, about a quarter saying the business-specific apps, a little bit more than a quarter. Of course, we have more. We can vote more than once and say that both is the way to go. And about a quarter of you also have no current strategy in place. So what I can conclude from this is that Ron and Richard, you both did an excellent job convincing the audience, because it's pretty split down the middle, going either way or doing both at the same time. So so good job, guys. So well, regardless of which way you go, you can, well, you may have noticed actually that both Ron and Richard were using Harmony to demonstrate how you can do either the mass appeal mobile apps or the business-specific apps as a way of realizing the business value for your mobile strategy and achieving that second tier of value that Gartner so much was talking about, and that your company has invested heavily in to get these mobile initiatives off the ground. So because we've shown this with both cases, you'll notice that regardless of which strategy you pick, Harmony will support you by allowing you to develop mass appeal mobile apps for the general business worker, or by using those high-value use cases that may differ by industry. So the examples you saw here today are only a small number of representative examples of what's possible. There are tons of different business cases that are being solved by mobile workers in other cases and other verticals. Since we're already talking about Harmony, maybe just a quick word about the product. Harmony is a set of apps that provides the single screen experience for all your Microsoft-based collaboration products. So it brings together all your products like SharePoint, Office 365, OneDrive for Business, Lync, Yammer, Office Online, Outlook web app, and even email all into a single screen, one flow, so that you don't have to toggle between apps. You can focus on the task or the particular case. As we saw here, you're able to focus on these use cases, these actual business cases, rather than have to get your people to figure out how to manipulate apps and learn something new, which, as we said at the beginning, was always the biggest impediment to getting people to try something new. So invested heavily in these Microsoft collaboration products. Harmony is the ultimate way of getting people to use them and get the business value out of it without having to train them and learn a lot of new things. And Harmony works on the mobile side. It works all the mobile devices you possibly could have, iOS, Android, Windows Phone, as well as BlackBerry 10. And on the desktop, it works as an email plugin. And in the browser, there's an Outlook web app widget. So just to wrap up here, in terms of next steps, what we suggest is give Harmony a try today. It's easy. Just use this QR code to download a free version of the app today, and you can get going on that literally in seconds. Or we also invite you to download the Guide to Mobile Collaboration, which provides yet even more information about what you need to do to get workers up and running quickly on their tablets and smartphones, so that you can start concentrating on getting business done and less on working with manipulating the technology. So with that, I'd like to thank you for participating, and we'll turn it over to questions and answers.
Thank you very much, David. And now let's take some time for questions and answers. Thank you to everyone who submitted these questions. Let's have a quick look. The first question is for you, Ron, our advocate of mass appeal mobile apps. And the question is, can you edit tables and sort the content using the online app, or do you have to drop back down to your laptop to a version of Word with that feature?
So you would need to edit the properties. I think the question's around editing properties. You would be able to edit the properties in a table, but in the property information for editing. So in the case of document or list, in this, what we call document information. But it is possible to edit that information, yeah, in the mobile device.
Thank you very much, Ron. And our next question is to you, Rich, advocate of business-specific mobile services. Is it possible to sync complete document libraries offline?
At the moment, it's individual documents, but very shortly on a roadmap, we will be extending that to entire libraries as well.
Thanks, Richard. And David, one for you. Do you see companies rolling out mobile strategies as a separate initiative, or is it part of a broader enterprise collaboration strategy?
Okay, yeah, thank you for that one. I think what we're seeing is pretty much what the poll showed, in that there's lots of different approaches at this point, this early part of the game, about how companies are getting started with their mobile initiatives. So a lot of companies are starting with mobile first or mobile only. But more and more we're seeing that people realize that the anytime, anywhere enterprise, or what's called the mobile enterprise, is really just different parts, and people are able to work on the most appropriate device that they have wherever they are, whether it's a laptop, desktop, a smartphone, or tablet. So more and more we're starting to see that these things are consolidating, and that companies are taking a more holistic approach to getting people to work together in the new mobile enterprise.
Thanks very much, David. This next question is for you, Richard. What other specific business cases, beside the ones shown, have you seen being used in the market?
Okay, one industry that's we've come across quite a few times is the construction industry, where, you know, similar to the transport industry, obviously connectivity is not always reliable, but also in that particular case, being able to go on site, mark up plans and review documentation, technical drawings and things while you're reviewing incidents that have occurred is absolutely paramount, but also things like capturing images from the device while you're on site as well. So, for example, taking a picture on your smartphone or tablet and uploading that directly to a SharePoint library, tagging it with all the relevant information, and also capturing additional important information from the image itself. So even things like the GPS coordinates can be automatically extracted from the photograph on the device, so that when you're back at the office, you know exactly which area of a site, because I mean, a construction site could be very, very large, and it might be that you want to pinpoint exactly where that image was taken, and therefore where the incident or the problem that needs to be dealt with has actually occurred.
Thanks, Richard. Examples. Ron, I've got a last question for you. You talked earlier about mass appeal apps. In your experience, are there certain industries where this is more true than others?
Well, I think, as I discussed and I showed, in my position today in this debate is that, the mass appeal approach is really applies, independent of industry. So it's really, we all manage projects. We all are looking to reduce paper and consumption. So it applies to all industries. But we've seen it across, as Richard mentioned, a few of them: transportation, construction, financial services. Another big one's in oil and gas, as where we've seen a lot of interest. Anywhere people are managing, also anywhere companies are managing big projects, whether it's building water plants, nuclear power plants, or reconstruction of large buildings and commercial things.
Thanks very much, Ren. I'd like to thank everyone again for joining us today, and of course to our experts for their strong arguments, and to David Lavender for moderating. You'll all receive an email tomorrow with the webinar will be available for viewing, and we look forward to meeting you again at our next webinar. And we invite you again to download our product from this presentation.